Hello, everybody. So my band, Thermal and a Quarter, was invited to perform at the United Nations headquarters in Germany in 2015. This was a celebration of the 70th anniversary of the formation of the United Nations. So it was quite a prestigious event for us to be playing at. And there were many things that were special for us on that. Yeah, so this was a picture of the event that took place. It was a gala event that was set up at the Market Square, and there were a few bands playing. We also released an album called No Wall Too High, because this was also the 25th anniversary of the reunification of Germany, and we took the concept of bringing down walls and wrote a set of 10 songs about it. And so the mayor of Bonn unveiled the album. I've got a picture of that too coming up. So yeah, it was all really nice, and we had a really nice show there. There were many performances. The whole place had a festive atmosphere. But what happened was, the interesting thing that happened was we finished the show, and we then took a stroll around the Market Square, and went and had some German beer and some sausages and all of that. And on our way back, when we were getting back from this little stroll that we took, we passed by the venue again, this venue, and everything was done. And we saw the sound engineer and a technician. Both of them were loading up a truck. And so we thought we'll just go and say hi to them and speak to them and see what's going on. And this was really incredible. This is the part that really blew our minds. We got to know from them that it was just the two of them, just two individuals, who actually set up the entire infrastructure for this gig. This whole thing that you see, all the stage, everything was a temporary structure. And so everything, including the lights, the power, all of it was set up by just these two guys, okay? Just to give you a simplistic understanding of what all it takes to set up a stage like this. Okay, so this is the stage, and you need monitors. Okay, these are really heavy monitors. You can see a couple of them here. You can see some hanging out there in terms of the PA. So there are a lot of these to lug up, put up on trusses, on rods. There are lights hanging up on the roof. You have to set up the roof itself. You need amplifiers on stage, because a band like ours requires 3-4 amplifiers. Many things, many complicated things coming up. And the stage itself, all of that was set up by just that one man. Unfortunately, the slide moved on. But yeah, just that one man in the yellow there, he and another person, just two people together, set up this entire thing. And not only that, at the point when we met them in the evening, they were just, this whole thing would fold up neatly and get into the back of the truck, and then they would drive the truck themselves and go to the next venue, set up, and do the next show. Apart from this, these two guys also had flyers and some business cards of theirs, which they would pass on to the UN guys and say that, we've got another truck which is bigger if you need a bigger stage, and they were trying to market their company. So this was a 360-degree job that they were doing. And just before we met them, and we were doing the sound check, that was the first time we saw them. And at sound check, we played a song just to test the sound. We played a song by a band called Steely Dan, and the song was called Jack of Speed. We did that song, and as soon as we finished the song, this guy, the sound engineer, would come up to us and say, hey, you know what? I've never heard another band perform this song for soundcheck, and it's fantastic. It sounded really great. So Steely Dan is this band that actually is very, very anal and very particular about how their sound is produced. They are meticulous about the quality of the production that happens. And so it was very reassuring for us that this sound engineer, we're meeting him for the first time, he knew his sound, he knew his music, he was extremely passionate about this. And, so the point over here is, here's this person who's passionate about one thing, which is sound, technology, music, and putting this together. He couldn't just sit back and enjoy that part. He had to do a whole lot of things around it to keep his passion alive. Now, for a band like ours, this is exactly what we had to do as well. We have to survive. There are a lot of things we needed to do around to keep it going. The very next show after this that we played was in India. We came back to Vellore, CMC Vellore, and we did a gig there. We were up on stage. We went up and played the first song, and as soon as we played the first song, one of the amplifiers stopped working, and it was quite embarrassing. We had to go back off stage, and we were waiting there. About 7 or 8 sound technicians went up on stage. Most of the time they were just looking at the amp. One guy tapped it a little bit. And then 2, 3 other managers came up, and they also stood around and they were looking at this amp. And the crowd was getting frustrated. The band, we were getting frustrated. Nothing's happening. And there was just such complacency. Nothing was happening. We went up on stage, picked up the amp, took it backstage, opened it up with our own tools. There was some loose contact and things that needed to be fixed. Did it, went up, delivered the show. So the point here, the message to a lot of artists and musicians is that it's not enough to just be passionate about one thing and think everything else is going to happen around it. We really have to get completely involved in what we're doing and get your hands dirty and do the work that's required. So the concept of DIY, that is do it yourself, that's been the mantra for the band Thermal and a Quarter for over 20 years now. And this was kind of a borrowed concept. In India, it's mostly AYM, or ask your mother, because most Indian men itself, I mean, we don't do our bed. We don't. Men aren't expected to lay the table or do the dishes or do the laundry. It's almost taken for granted that somebody else is going to do it for you. You're not even expected to do all of this. But anyway, coming back to the DIY concept, we heard about this concept in 2000s, where our friends would go abroad and they'd say, you know what, macha, you can't just call a carpenter or a plumber here. You just have to buy one DIY kit and you've got to set up everything on your own. And it was quite interesting and cool. And so we thought of the band as a DIY project, and we said, what if our band was a chair that we needed to assemble? What would we do to make it happen? But there was no manual there, and so we started looking at all the different parts that needed to come together. And coincidentally, at around the same time, in the year 2000, the iconic British rock band Deep Purple came to Bangalore, and Thermal and a Quarter had a chance to open for them at this concert. And it was a complete eye-opener for us. What we saw was incredible, the entire machinery that worked to make a band perform. And these were legendary musicians playing on stage. But the one thing that we took back from that concert was, it wasn't just the music, it wasn't just the musicians. I mean, these musicians were legends. There was John Lord, there was Ian Pace, and amazing musicians on stage playing. But the music alone and the musicians alone were just one part of that chair in our project. And we figured that the entire machinery, everything was as important as that for it to work. So we picked up a lot of learnings from there, and we were like, okay, so now this chair has to be made. It's not just for somebody to sit on. You need the chair to be, aesthetically appealing. It needs to be durable. It needs to be flexible. It needs to be made with eco-friendly material. It needs to be made with an organization that's a fun place to work, that's a fair and safe place to work with gender equality. I mean, the list goes on. There are so many things involved in getting this together. So as a band, very early on, we learned that, yeah, the music is good, the playing is good, but there's so many things that needs to work. So we put all of these together, and we started, seeing some small levels of success early on. We got more gigs and started getting a little famous and stuff. And looking back on that right now, this is a crucial point in a band's career when things can go terribly wrong. What happens is there's this bad case of celebrity that hits you. Okay, so you go up on stage, people recognize you, and how many of you here have heard of a musician called Eric Clapton? Great, we got a few people. So obviously, most of you wouldn't have heard of a guy called Jack Bruce or Ginger Baker, because Jack Bruce was just the bass player and Ginger Baker the drummer. But Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker and Eric Clapton were in a band together called Cream, and that's where Eric Clapton launched his career and went on to win hundreds of Grammys and became a mega star. But Jack Bruce wrote a song called Bad Case of Celebrity. And I thought this title would fit the topic I'm talking about right now, which is this problem of celebrity. This happens, it starts at home in India. When a child is born, and more often when a boy child is born, he is born a celebrity. At home, you are God, you're treated, I mean, everything changes. There is this energy about a boy child in the house that, oh my God, it's fantastic. The child there's a lot of importance placed on his head. People do everything for you, and you're told that you're the best. There's this constant reassurance that you are phenomenal, you're the best, there's nobody else better than you. And the child genuinely starts believing that, yeah, I must be a pretty cool celebrity, and grows up with people doing everything for him. He'll not even take out his plate and keep it on in the kitchen after a meal. This behavior is then taken on into the workplace as well when they grow up and they get into the workplace, and there's no way of understanding that there's a team working together and a lot of people are doing things to achieve a goal. But the celebrity in them just feels that it's all about them, and there's a lot of conflict in trying to work together in a team. Now, imagine being a musician, and then you go up on stage and you started playing, and you play really well. You're a really good drummer or a really good guitar player. You go up on stage and you start playing, and you get all this praise from the audience and the crowd, and people say you're amazing. It's even more difficult at this stage to manage this bad case of celebrity that hits you and makes you feel that it's all because of you that this is happening and you're the star, when you're just, as the case with Deep Purple, just a part of that whole thing. And if the whole thing doesn't come together, it doesn't work. So with Thermal and a Quarter, luckily, we learned these lessons early. We worked with teams very, very early on. We worked with teams of people, teams of professionals. We had a phenomenal graphic designer working with us. He set the benchmark when he designed our logo for us. There was a really, really good copywriter working with us, writing copy. So we had great teams working with us, and initially these were just informal teams, and they were people who were really, really passionate about what they did. But if they had to be that sound engineer in Germany who was invested, 360 degrees into all the initiatives of ours, it had to be a more formal arrangement. Slowly, we grew into a formal organization, and today we're about 50 to 60 people strong. We have around 50 to 60 professional musicians working full-time, passionate people working at Thermal and a Quarter and Academy, doing music full-time, but understanding the overall initiative that you need to take to deliver something there. All our faculty, everyone teach a lot of music, they perform a lot of music, there's recording opportunities. There are so many domains, organizing events. We do all of these together full-time. And this is probably one of the only companies today in India where 50 to 60 musicians are working full-time, passionate musicians working full-time, 6 days a week, doing what they love. And as a result, today we touch about 10,000 students on a weekly basis. We transfer this love for music to these students in Bangalore. We also work with about 1,500 underprivileged children. We do a free music education program. So there's a lot of doing. I mean, we are setting up studios, we are setting up music schools, we have 4 academies right now. All of this wouldn't have happened if the focus was only on the single part that you were passionate about. There were a lot of things that needed to be done around this, and it would be really fantastic to see a lot more of the youth today, musicians, not just sitting around and believing that they're really good and so everything is going to happen around them, but getting up and acting and doing stuff. That's what's going to get you places. So this was a 15-minute snapshot of 22 years of a band's history. And I hope there's something small that you can take away from this and start doing stuff. That's all from me today. Thank you.